Irving has 14 points on 4 of 5 shooting. He's made all 5 free throws. They are attacking DeAndre Ayton, right? So Ayton is dropped down at the free throw line, gives him a cushion. Now you're saying, all right, I'm closer. I still have too much separation. You go for the hesitation, and boom. So obviously targeting DeAndre Ayton in space, Bob Wischusen, and that's a challenge for a young big, right? Number one, you think about Ayton. Big-time talent. Had always been searching for consistency. And I know one thing Monty was telling us before the game is Ayton has open ears. He's willing to put in the work. He's willing to listen now to constructive criticism.
I love the Monty quote when he said, everything you want is on the other side of hard. And DeAndre Ayton is willing to do the hard. And that's what's made the biggest difference in the leap he's been able to take and live up to being the number 1 pick. Dario Saric checked that Frank Kaminsky off the bench, and he draws a foul. And they will call that a foul in the act. So the 2015 National Player of the Year at Wisconsin steps to the line to shoot a pair. On celebration of Earth Day from April 22nd through the 25th. For every 3-pointer made, the NBA will plant 3 trees with the Arbor Day Foundation. Fans can get involved on social media by using the hashtag #NBAGreen. Kyrie Irving will get a rest as Steve Nash will dip into his bench, but hasn't dipped deep enough to get Kevin Durant up in the game yet. We're waiting to see when KD is going to play. We were told that he would be in the lineup at some point today, but this supporting cast for the Nets has done yeoman's work in the absence of the big 3. Tyler Johnson from the corner knocks one down.
And this isn't unusual, right? You think back to February 5th, which is the second of the now 3 times in 874 games Kevin Durant has played and then not started. Nice drive by Craig, defensive breakdown. One of the reasons they waited so long in that February 5th Toronto game was they wanted to use the majority of the minutes available to KD in the second half should they need it. And this is a quality opponent, and so you might anticipate a similar situation today.
And it looks like we're going to have a defensive 3 seconds call as we take a look at the break. Blake Griffin wide open triple.
So obviously is playing very good basketball in the minutes given to him. And he laughed when he came over here because people were, talking about the Nets or, who you're going to add next. You're adding collection of talent after collection of talent. He said, geez, for the last 5 years, all I've heard is how bad I am. So I'm not sure what everybody's talking about.
Well, Blake Griffin is obviously a big name, but if you think about him in concert with the Jeff Greens, the Bruce Browns, they bring Mike James now over from Russia, Landry Shamet. The job that I think Sean Marks has done as the general manager of the Nets in plugging all of the holes necessary around the absence of Durant and James Harden and Kyrie Irving when they have not all been in the lineup together, and they've only played 7 games together. It's probably one of the more, I think, underrated stories this year in the NBA, Dars.
I agree, and I remember the night they departed, Jared Allen, and I loved Jared Allen. I just thought he was this unique, growing, athletic big with so much potential, and it just opened an opportunity for Nick Claxton, and they clearly knew what they had. And I just follow up and say, yes, they've made the transition, Bob, from a team. You think when Sean Marks took over, this was a team that was losing significantly. It had no picks. It looked like an organization going nowhere. And yet Sean Marks digs it out of the dirt along with Kenny Atkinson, finds a bunch of guys. Joe Harris was on the scrap heap. He was almost out of the league. And the Nets put in the structure, and the kind of organizational responsibility that turned a franchise that was in very bleak condition around, and now you transition to, we've got a window here to win a championship, let's go get it. Cannot say enough about Sean Marks.
Sean Marks has done an incredible job, Bob and Doris, but also the Nets have been working to keep the players that maybe aren't their big three ready with their stay-ready group. Kevin Durant's worked out with this group on the way back from his thigh contusion, his hamstring strain, and Achilles injury. Before that, he was working with the team stay-ready group. And the idea of an extra work group isn't new, but perhaps none has been more star-studded or necessary than in Brooklyn. As Kyrie told me, this ain't your average stay-ready group, and the Nets are now, as we see, relying on these fringe players to play such key minutes for them, Bob.
Well, they've had a lot of different stay-ready groups. The Nets have had 32 different starting lineups this season, and Mike James coming over represents the 27th different player that has suited up for them this year. Those are both all-time franchise highs. So we talk all the time about what Kevin Durant, James Harden, and Kyrie Irving can be, and what we all believe they might be in the postseason, but they're a 1 seed in large part because they have plugged so many different holes with guys throughout the year. It's just been a masterful job of problem solving in the absence of their big names. And here's Griffin looking for the alley-oop. That sails over his head from Tyler Johnson.
And all, by the way, in the midst of our discussion, our director took a shot of Steve Nash, right? So all of what you just said and documented along with Malika, with a brand new head coach. And I know Steve Nash is one of the greatest players to suit up in the league, 2-time MVP, 7 seconds or less. He's put together an outstanding staff. But there's a lot going on with this Brooklyn organization, and kudos to them for sitting squarely in first place right now.
Out of 1 second differential. So Chris Paul will dribble it down towards the end of the first quarter. 5 seconds, draws a foul. That's called on Bruce Brown. Here's the foul the Nets had to give. I'll check that. They are over the limit. Chris Paul, 2 shots. Should we be talking more about Chris Paul and the MVP?
Well, I think listen, I feel like the length of the list for MVP this year is truly incredible. But
that's a good point.
You absolutely cannot discount the influence of this guy on any organization in which he plays. And, Malika had the great story about the relationship between he and Devin Booker. Probably the perfect guy to put next to a young star.
Closing seconds of the quarter. Johnson does not get the shot off, and as a result, it's a 5.